What is up, guys? Welcome back to Just a Guy on My Lunch Break. So, we're going to look a little bit at Kratom, how Kratom may have an impact on this opioid crisis, specifically fentanyl within our country. And we're going to look at this objectively. Okay. And I'm also going to show you guys an image of what a fake oxycodone laced with fentanyl looks like versus an actual. So yeah, first thing we're going to do is we're going to read a little bit about fentanyl overdose. The poison that is killing loved ones and American citizens is being brought here by criminal drug cartels, said Special Agent in Charge Michael Davis, head of DEA St. Louis Division. DEA's great strength is taking down these networks and as a result, helping families get justice. We might not be able to give them closure, but we can facilitate the healing process. Fentanyl is the single deadliest drug threat that our nation has ever encountered, said DEA Administrator Ann Milgram. Fentanyl is everywhere, from large metropolitan areas to rural America. No community is safe from this poison. The Centers of Disease Control, the CDC, estimates that in 2023, nearly 75,000 Americans died from overdose of synthetic opioids, primarily fentanyl. That same year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection seized 27,000 pounds of fentanyl. This is more than 10 times the amount seized just 4 years prior. On this particular channel, we talk about kratom, but 99.9% of the time, all of the people that cross paths with my channel, kratom is not their first experience with some sort of opioid like substance. Okay, for some of us it's been pain pills. That was my go-to back in the day, were pain pills, hydrocodone, Percocet, that sort of thing. But I have had people on the channel that are recovered from heroin addictions, fentanyl addictions, and I've had some that were still using as they came on the channel. Okay, so I want to try to do my part, knowing that I have that sort of viewership and following, trying to help clear some of this up, where kratom stands in this opioid epidemic, and also to kind of give everyone a little glimpse into what this fentanyl crisis looks like. Okay, and to stay away from any pill that does not first come from a pharmacy that has been prescribed to you from a doctor. And I know a lot of people on here have been touched by fentanyl in some way or another. And if it's not you, it's someone you know or someone that you were close to had an experience with fentanyl. And a lot of you know who've been following me for a while, I had a 17-year-old kid who was friends with my son to pass away just over 2 months ago. This kid was 17, about to go into his senior year in high school. Now, I don't know for a fact that it was a fentanyl overdose, but when I went to the viewing and I spoke with his grandfather and his mother, they were both very, very open that there was still an investigation going on, but they feel pretty confident that this young man got a hold of something that was likely laced with fentanyl, which is what caused his death as a young, healthy 17-year-old kid. Just a really, really sad situation. The only reason I don't know for sure is because I don't know his parents really, really well, despite that he was over at my house every so often practicing kickboxing and stuff with my son. And he was a wonderful kid. But I don't know his parents well enough to where I feel like I can reach out to them and say, hey, do you guys find out anything? I'd like to know. It's not any of my business, and I don't want to obviously force them to talk about something that they're not ready to talk about yet, especially with someone that they don't know all that well, like myself. So that's just me, just reading the room, knowing better, having more tact. But I'm about 95% sure, based on what his grandfather and his mother were telling me that day, that they think that that's exactly what killed him. So it certainly has touched me in that way, and that was my first experience with, you know, knowing someone personally who had, an accidental overdose with fentanyl. Fentanyl wasn't around when I was a kid. I'm a 48-year-old guy. Back then, just little weed and alcohol is all you had to worry about. And every once in a while, when I got a little older, someone might bring some cocaine around or something, but it was very far few in between that I would even see or experience anything like that. So, uh, it's way, way different now when you look at the fact that 27,000 pounds of fentanyl stopped by U.S. Customs in 2023. So let's think about this. 27,000 pounds were confiscated by U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Now, let's think about how much did not get confiscated, how much actually made it through. Could be double that, triple that, quadruple that. I mean, you could be looking at 100,000 pounds of fentanyl that actually made it into the United States during that year of 2023, right? Just scary, scary numbers. First thing I want to do now is I want to show you a picture of what oxycodone that is laced with fentanyl looks like versus an actual oxycodone 30 milligram looks like. The scary part about that is I had to look back at it multiple times. I'm like, what's the difference here? I don't see the difference, right? And that's scary. Looking at that every time you get something like that and put something like that in your mouth, you are tempting fate. You could literally just. And so now I want to look at, and we're objective on here. If I wasn't being objective, I wouldn't be being truthful. So when you look at kratom and kratom related deaths, was able to find a little bit on that. This is a little more convoluted because in a lot of kratom related deaths, there were also other substances involved or other substances in that person's system. So I think that the toxicology, autopsy, and stuff, it was a little bit more of a gray area there than with the fentanyl, where they just know that that's what shuts people's lights off. Kratom is one of those where there are some kratom related deaths where kratom was the sole substance, according to medical staff and scientists, that caused the death. So I'm going to read a little bit about that. It says most cases involved other substances. Kratom was listed as the sole substance causing death in 56 people in 2022, 68 people in 2021, and 58 in 2020. All right. Now, I'm not going to go into, we would have to look at each individual case by case. We're not going to go into all that. Um, I mean, in my mind, the numbers are clear. You know, 2023, 75,000 Americans died from fentanyl related deaths. Okay. The year before that, Kratom, 56. This is 56 people that they know of that passed away. So obviously, there's a huge discrepancy there in, I think it's pretty safe to say that kratom is obviously a safer alternative. Now, when you get into taking really, really high amounts of anything, that can be toxic for the liver, it can be toxic for your other organs. And although, you can look at some sources and it says that kratom does not cause respiratory suppression. And I've never noticed any respiratory suppression when I've used kratom. But then there are other sources that says that it does cause respiratory suppression. And to me, that just speaks to the fact that we still don't know a whole lot about kratom. You understand? It speaks to the fact that it's relatively new to our country, and there's not been a lot of long-term studies on it because I've never noticed any sort of respiratory suppression with kratom, and I know what respiratory suppression feels like, and I've shared this story quite often. Back in the day when I was heavy on pain pills, I was taking Percocet And I was taking strong Percocets. I'm talking about the 10 milligram Percocets. At my heaviest, there were days where I was using up to 15 of those pills per day, guys, per day. Most people wouldn't be able to stomach taking two. That just goes to show you how high my tolerance was for those things. But I absolutely remember lying in bed at night and my breath sounds were so shallow. And I'm going to try to give you an example of how my breath sounds would sound. And it would be like this. I don't know if you can hear that, but I was a 27, 28, 29-year old man at this time in perfect health. Um, the amount of respiratory suppression I experienced from taking high amounts of synthesized opiates like Percocets and Vicodins and stuff like that was night and day from Kratom. And I have used high amounts of Kratom. I've been through periods where I was using high amounts of Kratom. I never noticed the respiratory suppression. If it is there, it certainly is not on the same playing field as synthetic opioids like the pain pills, the Vicodin, oxycodone, oxycontin, all those sort of things. So, anyway, moving on from that, I think it is safe to say that Kratom is definitely a safer alternative. Let's be clear, a lot of even a good thing can be a bad thing. And I say that all the time on this channel. So I think the most important thing when it comes to Kratom is a lot of people like to say, well, it's the answer to the opioid crisis. Is a lot better of an alternative than is fentanyl, Percocets, Vicodins, those sort of things. And I won't disagree with that, but I will say that it is clear that most people who have turned to Kratom and are using Kratom are opioid addicts. They have opioid use disorder, okay? And the problem comes when these individuals do not know how to control how much of any opioid like substance that they're using. They don't have control over that, right? The substance controls them. They don't control it. Okay? And when you're in that sort of situation, even something like kratom that seems a little bit more benign, I think that's why we get these sort of things right here, because in my opinion, I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, kratom, that's crazy. I can't see kratom causing 56 deaths in people. But I think that you get this population of people who are serious opiate addicts, and then they start using kratom and they don't have any control over it. They don't have any switch off button, so they just take it, take it, take it, take it, take it, and it becomes a toxic sort of situation for them. And there are a lot of X factors and variables here that we're not looking at and can't see in those situations. How old were these people that died? What was their other general health like? Did they have health problems in other areas? Did they have heart defects? Did they have high blood pressure? Did they have heart problems? Did they have respiratory problems? What other substances and medications were they taking at also the same time as kratom? And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, how SSRI medications for antidepressants can counteract with the alkaloids in kratom, and that can be no bueno for a lot of people. People have reported having seizures. I had one of my members express how he would almost pass out when he stood up. He would hear swooshing sounds, fractal darkness would start to encroach, and he would have to grab onto something. And I myself experienced a little bit of that, not as severe, because I wasn't taking an SSRI, I was taking kratom only. But at high doses, I also experienced, every time I would stand up, I would have to either do it slowly or make sure that I was near something that I could steady myself on, because you get some of that. I think is definitely the safer alternative, but there always to me is a bottom line, and that bottom line is, are you a person that can control or moderate how much of it you are taking? Okay. um, because as far as kratom, deaths are concerned, we don't have a clear answer on that. Now we do know that it's way less than fentanyl. Okay, 75,000 people in America alone died from fentanyl overdoses in the year 2023, 1 year. Okay, and then we're looking at 56 deaths by kratom in 2022. Okay, not only that, kratom is legal and in most states and can be bought anywhere, and can be bought in abundance and in as much as people want to buy and consume all at one time. People are free to do that. But again, a lot of people look at that, well, it's not as bad as this and that, and I could go right now, take a gun and go walk into Walmart and go kill one person. When the police stop me, I could say, well, at least I only killed one person. At least I didn't do a mass shooting. At least I didn't kill 30 people. Come on, man. Give me some credit here. And really, when you look at it, that's kind of our frame of thinking sometimes when it comes to, well, at least kratom, at least I'm only taking kratom. If I'm going to be addicted to something, let it just be kratom. It's a lot better than being addicted to pain pills or heroin or whatever that is. Yeah, maybe, but depending on how you use it and how you're able to moderate it, it still may not be good for you, right? You still may be doing it in a way that it's not good for you physically, not good for you mentally, not good for you emotionally, not good for you financially, all of those things. And if you are using it in that way and it's affecting you in those negative ways, then it's pretty irresponsible of you to say, well, at least I'm not addicted to, you know, heroin or fentanyl or whatever. I mean, you're that person that, well, I only killed one person. I could have killed 30. Give me some credit, bro. You know. So anyway, that's about it. It's a very important topic. Moral of the story is, if you're going to take anything, you have to be able to do it responsibly and moderately. And as for the fentanyl, just don't take anything that has not come from a professional pharmacy location that was prescribed to you by the doctor. You just can't these days. You just can't. Please don't. I'm begging you guys. Please don't. I want everyone to be safe out there. So that's kind of the moral of that story. Anyway, I guess that's about it. If you've not subscribed to the channel, if you enjoy this sort of content, like the video. Also comment down below. Let me know any experiences that you might have had, how fentanyl has affected you or someone else's life. I'd love to hear those stories. If you want to support the channel, you can hit that thanks button down below. Do like a one-time cash donation. Wham, bam, thank you, man. You're out of there. You can also join the channel. I will leave the link to join down below. $2.99 for a lunch breaker one. That's $2.99 a month. $4.99 for a lunch breaker two. That's $5 a month. It's not much money, but it helps the channel out quite a lot, and it helps me to keep going. It helps me to keep making this sort of content. So if you appreciate what I'm doing, appreciate it in that way. Put your cash where your mouth is. All right, have a good day, guys. I'm going to get up out of here. Peace.